Shut up, you pathetic old hag! Rebecca's hand cracked across Margaret's face, with a sound that echoed through the locked bedroom. The 74-year-old woman stumbled backward, her trembling fingers touching her burning cheek as tears streamed down her weathered face. "Please, Rebecca, I won't tell anyone about the money. I promise. Just please don't." "Don't what?" Rebecca's perfectly manicured nails dug into Margaret's frail arm, leaving red crescents in the papery skin. "Don't tell my husband how his pathetic mother has been stealing pills and faking confusion?" "Oh, Margaret, you're going to do exactly what I say, or I'll make sure Thomas puts you in the worst nursing home I can find. And your precious grandson?" She leaned closer, her breath hot against Margaret's ear. "Accidents happen to college boys every single day." Margaret's sob caught in her throat as Rebecca's grip tightened. Outside the locked door, neither woman heard the footsteps that had stopped cold in the hallway. "Before we continue with this shocking story, I need to ask you something important. If you want to see justice served, if you want to know how this nightmare ends, please hit that subscribe button right now. This story gets more intense with every minute, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Also, drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel, and knowing that people everywhere care about protecting our elderly loved ones. Now, let's get back to Margaret's story, because what you just heard? That was only the beginning. Thomas Brennan's hands were shaking. The keys. Where were the keys? He'd just had them. Right there in his hand when he walked through the front door. But now his palm was empty, and his mother was crying, and Rebecca, Rebecca, was saying things that couldn't be real. He'd come home early. That was the thing. The Henderson account closed 3 hours ahead of schedule, and Thomas had actually thought maybe he'd surprise Rebecca, maybe take her to that Italian place she loved. 3 years of marriage, and he still tried to do the romantic gestures his father had taught him. Be spontaneous. Show up with flowers. Take your wife to dinner on a Tuesday for no reason. Stupid. He'd been so stupid. "Not going to tell him anything, are you, Margaret?" Rebecca's voice drifted through the afternoon air. Thomas had been walking toward the guest house because his mother hadn't answered her phone that morning. 3 calls straight to voicemail. He'd told himself she was probably napping. Probably had the ringer off. Probably fine because Rebecca checked on her every day, didn't she? Rebecca was good like that, caring, attentive. Thomas stopped walking. That wasn't Rebecca's caring voice. That was something else. He moved closer to the guest house, his dress shoes silent on the stone pathway. The windows were shut. All of them. Margaret loved fresh air, loved sitting with the windows open, even in November. Said it reminded her of her childhood in Montana. "Please, I'll be quiet." His mother's voice, small, scared. "I won't bother you during your book club anymore." "Book club?" Rebecca laughed, no humor in it. "You think I go to book club? God, you're more senile than I thought." Thomas felt his stomach drop. He pressed himself against the side of the building, right next to the bedroom window. His heart was hammering so loud he was sure they'd hear it. "I haven't told Thomas anything," Margaret said, tears in her voice. His mother was crying. "About the credit cards? About the transfers? Nothing. I've stayed quiet, just like you said." "Credit cards? What credit cards?" "Because you know what happens if you talk," Rebecca said, her voice closer now. Thomas heard footsteps inside. "We've been over this. You open your mouth, and I'll tell Thomas you're losing your mind. I'll show him the pills I've been hiding in your room, the confused voicemails I saved. He'll believe me, Margaret. He always believes me." Thomas's phone buzzed in his pocket. He grabbed it, fumbling, nearly dropped it. Text from his assistant about the Henderson contract. He silenced it with shaking fingers. Inside, Rebecca kept talking. "And if that doesn't work? If somehow you convince him to question me?" "Well," a pause. Your grandson is at University of Washington, isn't he? Room 412 in McCarty Hall. Takes morning classes on Tuesday and Thursday. Walks back alone around 10 p.m. on Wednesdays. No, she couldn't be. Accidents happen, Rebecca said softly. College boys get mugged, get hit by cars, fall downstairs. Would be tragic, wouldn't it? If something happened to Jamie because his grandmother couldn't follow simple instructions? Thomas heard something crash, ceramic shattering. His mother cried out. "Clean that up," Rebecca snapped. "And stop crying. You're giving me a headache." Thomas couldn't breathe, couldn't move. His wife, the woman he'd shared a bed with for 3 years, was threatening his mother, threatening his 19-year-old son. And his mother was terrified. How long? How long had this been happening? He needed to think, his phone. Thomas pulled it out with shaking hands, opened the voice recorder, hit record, pressed himself closer to the window. "Your medication," Rebecca was saying. "You'll take what I give you when I give it to you." "But the doctor said—" "I don't care what the doctor said. I'm the one with medical power of attorney now, remember? You signed those papers." "You told me they were insurance forms." "And you believed me. That's the difference between you and me, Margaret. You're trusting. I'm smart." Thomas's jaw clenched so hard his teeth hurt. He kept recording. 17 seconds. 20. 30. "Now," Rebecca continued, "about the property transfer. You're going to sign over the house to Thomas and me. Joint ownership." "This house?" Margaret's voice wavered. "But Thomas's father left it to me. It's all I have for the boys." "It's wasted on you. You don't need a whole house. We'll move you into a nice facility. Somewhere in Spokane, maybe. Quiet. Far away." Far away from me, Thomas realized. She wanted his mother far away so no one would notice, so no one would see. "I won't sign," Margaret said, trying to sound firm, but Thomas heard the fear underneath. "Then maybe I'll have to tell Thomas about your other problem." "What problem?" "The stealing." Rebecca's voice turned sweet. Poisonous sweet. "All those things that have been disappearing from the house. My jewelry. Cash from Thomas's wallet. I've been documenting everything, Margaret. Pictures, timestamps. I even have video of you in our bedroom going through my things." I would never." "Of course you haven't. But Thomas doesn't know that. And once I show him the evidence, once I explain that you've been stealing to support some kind of shopping addiction or gambling problem or whatever story I decide to tell, he'll agree you need professional help, the kind of help that comes with locked doors." Thomas felt sick. She'd been planting evidence, creating a false narrative, building a case to make his mother look mentally incompetent. And he'd missed all of it. "I hate you," Margaret whispered. Silence. Then footsteps. Fast. A sound Thomas knew. Palm hitting flesh. His mother cried out again. "Say that again," Rebecca hissed. "Go ahead. Say it again and see what happens." Thomas's finger hit stop on the recording. 8 minutes. 8 minutes of his wife revealing herself as a monster. He backed away from the window, his mind racing. He couldn't go in there. Not yet. If Rebecca knew he'd heard, she'd destroy evidence. She'd twist everything. She was good at that. He'd seen her do it with friends who'd offended her, neighbors who'd complained, anyone who crossed her. She could make herself the victim so convincingly. He needed more. Needed documentation. Proof that would stand up. Thomas walked back to the main house, on legs that didn't feel steady. His keys were on the kitchen counter where he'd dropped them. Had that been 5 minutes ago? 10? Time felt broken. He went straight to his office, closed the door, locked it. His hands were still shaking as he pulled up his mother's bank accounts online. Margaret had given him access years ago, back when his father was sick, and someone needed to help manage bills. Thomas checked the statements maybe twice a year, just to make sure everything looked okay. Rebecca handled most of his mother's financial stuff now. She'd offered, said it would take pressure off him. God, he'd been grateful. The screen loaded. Thomas stared at the numbers. Then he stared harder because they couldn't be right. Margaret's savings account, the one his father had built over 40 years of teaching. The one that had held $156,000 when Thomas last checked 8 months ago. It showed $89,231. $67,000. Gone. Thomas scrolled through transactions. Small withdrawals at first. 300 here, 500 there. Then bigger. 2,000, 5,000. Transfers to accounts he didn't recognize. Cash withdrawals at ATMs across Seattle. The most recent was yesterday. $8,000 taken out in 4 transactions. His phone buzzed. Text from Rebecca. Running late, be home by 6. Making pot roast for dinner. Smiley face emoji, heart emoji. Thomas wanted to throw the phone across the room. He clicked on Margaret's credit report instead. 3 new cards, all opened in the last year. All maxed out. Total debt, $63,000. His mother's credit score had tanked from 780 to 520. Margaret didn't even use credit cards. She paid cash for everything. Had her whole life. Thomas opened Rebecca's laptop next. She kept it in the office, usually left it unlocked. No secrets between us, she always said. Her browser history made his stomach turn. Searches from the past 6 months. How to get power of attorney over parent. Signs of dementia in elderly women. Medications that cause confusion. Can you force someone into nursing home? Selling property without owner present. She'd been researching this, planning it. Thomas found a folder on her desktop labeled Important Documents. Inside were scanned files. He opened the first one. Medical Assessment Form. Dr. Patterson's letterhead, dated 2 weeks ago. Thomas had never heard of Dr. Patterson. The form claimed Margaret showed signs of moderate cognitive decline, memory issues, confusion, inability to manage finances independently. His mother's signature at the bottom. Thomas opened the next file. Power of attorney document. Gave Rebecca full legal authority over Margaret's medical decisions and finances. Signed 3 months ago. Thomas had never seen this, never been told about it. Another file. Contract with Peaceful Meadows Senior Living in Spokane. Private room, $6,800 per month. Deposit paid, $20,000. Move-in date, December 15th. 3 weeks away. Rebecca had already paid to ship his mother off, had already signed the papers, had already decided. Thomas's vision blurred. He pulled up the home security footage. They'd installed cameras 2 years ago after break-ins in the neighborhood. Front door, driveway, back patio. He fast-forwarded through the last month, watching Rebecca's daily patterns. Every day after he left for work, she walked to the guest house, carrying things, coming out with things, sometimes staying for hours. Thomas clicked on footage from 2 weeks ago, Wednesday afternoon. Rebecca entered the guest house at 1:47 p.m. She was inside for 12 minutes. When she came out, she was carrying Margaret's purse and a folder. Different day, same pattern. Rebecca going in, Rebecca coming out with Margaret's belongings. Thomas scrolled back further. 3 months, 6 months, a year. A year ago, Margaret had still been outside regularly. He could see her gardening, checking the mail, sitting on the porch with her coffee. Then slowly, those appearances decreased. By 6 months ago, she was only outside when Rebecca was with her. Supervised, controlled. Now she didn't come outside at all. Thomas's phone rang. His son, Jamie.
Dad? Hey, is Grandma okay?
Thomas's throat tightened. Why?
I've been calling her for 3 days. Just goes to voicemail. And last time I came by, Rebecca said she was sleeping. But that was weird because it was like 2 in the afternoon, and Grandma never naps that long.
When was this?
Last Sunday. I tried to wait, but Rebecca said she wasn't feeling well, and I should come back another time. Is she sick?
Last Sunday. 5 days ago. Rebecca had kept Jamie from seeing his grandmother, had made excuses, had prevented contact.
Jamie, when's the last time you actually talked to Grandma? Face to face?
Silence on the line. Then,
Dad, I don't know, maybe a month? I thought she was just busy or tired or... Is something wrong?
Everything's wrong, Thomas thought. Everything. I'll call you back, Thomas said. Don't come by the house right now, okay? Just trust me. He hung up before Jamie could ask more questions. His son. Rebecca had threatened his son, had looked up his dorm room number, his schedule, had planned... What? What exactly had she been planning? Thomas pulled up Rebecca's email. She'd synced it to the laptop for convenience. He typed Margaret into the search bar. Dozens of results. He opened the most recent. Email to someone named Scott Palmer. Timeline accelerated. Need final paperwork by end of month. Subject becoming difficult to manage. May need alternative solutions. Alternative solutions. What did that mean? Thomas opened another email. Different recipient. Dr. Richard Patterson. The name from the fake medical assessment. Dr. Patterson, thank you for providing the documentation we discussed. The cognitive decline diagnosis is exactly what we need to proceed with placement. As we agreed, payment will be sent once subject is successfully transferred to facility. Looking forward to our continued partnership. She'd paid a doctor to create fake medical records. Thomas kept clicking. Email after email. Evidence of a conspiracy. Rebecca coordinating with multiple people. A lawyer named Mitchell Grant. A real estate agent named Patricia Diaz. All of them working together to strip Margaret of her assets, her autonomy, her life. His phone buzzed again. Text from David Chen, his college roommate. David was a lawyer now. Family law. They hadn't talked in months. The text was random. Hey man, saw you on LinkedIn. Congrats on Henderson account. We should grab lunch. Thomas stared at the message. David. David specialized in elder abuse cases. His hands weren't shaking anymore. The initial shock had burned off, replaced by something colder, harder. Thomas called David. Thomas, man, it's been too long. David, I need a lawyer. For my mother. My wife has been... Thomas's voice cracked. He took a breath. Rebecca's been abusing her. Financially. Emotionally. I just found out. I have evidence, but I don't know what to do. The casual tone left David's voice immediately. Tell me everything. Right now. All of it. Thomas did. He talked for 15 minutes straight. The audio recording. The bank statements. The fake medical records. The threats against Jamie. Every piece of evidence he'd found in the last hour. When he finished, David was quiet for a long moment. Thomas, this is bad. Criminal bad. Elder abuse, fraud, conspiracy, extortion. If what you're telling me is accurate, Rebecca could face serious prison time. Good. But we need to be smart about this. People like her, when they're cornered, they escalate. We need to get your mother out safely first, then build the case. You can't confront Rebecca until we have protective orders in place.
How long?
I can file emergency petitions tonight. Get a judge to sign off by morning. We could have police there by 8 a.m. with orders to remove your mother from the situation. 8 a.m. That was 15 hours away. 15 more hours of his mother alone with Rebecca. She threatened Jamie, Thomas said. My son. She knows his dorm room, his class schedule. What if she... Call him right now. Tell him to stay with friends tonight. Stay public. Don't be alone. I'll arrange campus security to keep an eye on his building. But Thomas, you need to act normal until tomorrow morning. If Rebecca suspects you know anything, this all falls apart. Act normal. Sit across the dinner table from the woman who'd been torturing his mother. Pretend everything was fine. I can do that, Thomas said. Are you sure? Because if you slip, if she sees something in your face... I can do it. Thomas's voice was flat. Whatever it takes to keep Mom safe. They talked for another 30 minutes. David needed documentation. Thomas emailed him everything. Audio files, bank statements, screenshots, scanned documents. David promised to have everything filed within 2 hours. At 5:47 p.m., Thomas heard the garage door. Rebecca was home. He closed all the incriminating tabs, pulled up a work document, took 3 deep breaths. Thomas? Rebecca's voice from the kitchen. Honey, you home? He walked out of the office. Rebecca was unpacking groceries, her hair perfect, her smile bright. She looked like a magazine ad for suburban happiness. Hey, Thomas said. His voice sounded normal. Good. You're late. Ugh, traffic was a nightmare. But I got everything for dinner. Your favorite, pot roast with those little potatoes. Your mom gave me the recipe last year, remember? She mentioned his mother so casually, like she hadn't spent the afternoon terrorizing her. Sounds great, Thomas said. Need help? No, you relax. Open some wine. You look stressed. Because I just discovered my wife is a sociopath, Thomas thought. But he pulled out a bottle of red, poured 2 glasses, handed one to Rebecca. She kissed his cheek. Long day? Henderson account wrapped up early. That's wonderful. We should celebrate. Rebecca started pulling out ingredients. Oh, I checked on your mom this afternoon. She was taking a nap. Looked peaceful. Peaceful, right. That's good, Thomas said. She's been tired lately. Rebecca's expression shifted to concern. Perfect, practiced concern. You know, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. I think maybe we should get her checked out again. Sometimes fatigue is a sign of something more serious. Cognitive issues can present as physical symptoms. There it was, the narrative she'd been building, setting him up to believe Margaret was declining. You think so? Thomas kept his voice neutral. I don't want to worry you, but... Rebecca touched his arm. My aunt went through this. Started with fatigue, then confusion, memory problems. It was early dementia. If we catch it early, there are treatments. Treatments, like a locked facility in Spokane. Maybe we should take her to Dr. Morrison, Thomas said. Dr. Morrison was Margaret's actual doctor, the one who'd been treating her for 30 years. Rebecca shook her head. Actually, I already scheduled something. Friday morning with a geriatric specialist, Dr. Patterson. He's supposed to be the best. The doctor she'd already paid off. The one who'd written the fake assessment. That's really thoughtful, Thomas said. The words tasted like ash. Thank you for handling that. Rebecca beamed. Of course, that's what I'm here for. Dinner was agony. Thomas sat across from Rebecca, eating pot roast, talking about nothing. She told him about running into Sharon from the country club, about the sale at Nordstrom, about their friends the Hendersons planning a trip to Cabo. Normal conversation, mundane details, like she hadn't threatened a college student that afternoon. Like she hadn't stolen $67,000. Like she wasn't planning to ship his mother off to die alone in a facility 300 miles away. Thomas smiled, laughed at her jokes, poured more wine. Inside, he was screaming. "You're quiet tonight," Rebecca said, reaching for his hand across the table. Thomas looked at her hand, the hand that had slapped his mother, the hand that had signed fraudulent documents, the hand that wore the wedding ring he placed there 5 years ago, thinking she was the answer to his loneliness after his divorce. "Just tired," he said. "Maybe you should go to bed early." Rebecca squeezed his fingers. "I'll clean up." At 9 p.m., Thomas went to the bedroom. He lay in the dark, listening to Rebecca move around downstairs. At 10:30, she came up, got ready for bed, slid under the covers next to him. "Love you," she whispered. Thomas kept his breathing steady, pretended to be asleep. He didn't sleep. Couldn't. He stared at the ceiling, watching shadows move across the walls. 20 yards away, his mother was alone in the guest house. Was she sleeping? Or was she lying awake too, scared, wondering why her son hadn't noticed her suffering? At 2 a.m., Thomas got up. Careful, quiet. He went to the window that faced the guest house. A single light was on in Margaret's bedroom. She was awake. Thomas pulled out his phone, started to text her, then stopped. If Rebecca checked his mother's phone, which she probably did regularly, any message would tip her off. "One more night, Mom," he thought. "Just hold on, one more night." At 5:15 a.m., his phone buzzed. Text from David. "Emergency order granted. Police will be there at 8 a.m. Protective order signed. Rebecca cannot contact your mother or Jamie. I'll be there with them. Don't do anything until we arrive." Thomas got up, showered, dressed in the suit like he was going to work. Rebecca woke at 6:30. "You're up early." "Big day, wrapping up Henderson stuff." She nodded sleepily, went to take her own shower. Thomas made coffee. His hands were steady now. Hours of planning had burned through the fear, leaving something harder behind. Purpose. Focus. At 7:45, he stood by the front window, waiting. At 7:58, 2 police cars pulled up outside. Rebecca came down the stairs in her robe. "Thomas? Who's here?" Thomas opened the door. Detective Sarah Winters stood on the porch. David Chen was behind her. 2 uniformed officers flanked them. "Thomas Brennan," Detective Winters said formally, "we have an emergency protective order for Margaret Brennan. We need to speak with Rebecca Brennan and access the guest house immediately." Behind him, Thomas heard something shatter. Rebecca's coffee mug hitting the floor.
What is this?"
Rebecca's voice climbed. "Thomas, what's happening?" Thomas turned to face his wife. "They're here for Mom, and they're here for you." Rebecca's face went through a remarkable transformation. Shock, fear, then calculation. Her expression smoothed into confused innocence. "This is insane. Thomas, what have you told them? Your mother is fine. She's being cared for." "This is some kind of mistake." "Rebecca Brennan," Detective Winter said. "We have evidence of elder abuse, financial exploitation, and fraud. You need to come with us to answer questions." "Evidence? What evidence? I haven't done anything." Rebecca looked at Thomas, eyes wide. "Honey, tell them. Tell them I've been taking care of your mother. This is crazy." "I heard you," Thomas said quietly. "Yesterday. Everything you said to her. I recorded it." The color drained from Rebecca's face. You were home?" "I was home." For 1 second, Rebecca's mask dropped completely. Thomas saw pure rage, hatred. Then she lunged, not at him, toward the back door, toward the guest house. 2 officers grabbed her before she made it 3 steps. "Mrs. Brennan, you need to calm down." "Let me go!" Rebecca screamed. Her voice turned vicious, raw. "That ungrateful old bitch! After everything I put up with! Her boring stories and her constant questions and her pathetic need for attention. She ruined everything. I had it all planned. The house, the money, all of it. And she couldn't just do what she was told." The officers exchanged glances. Every word Rebecca spoke was more evidence. Thomas watched his wife thrash against their grip, still screaming. This was who she'd been all along. He'd just been too blind to see it. "I need to get to my mother," Thomas said. David nodded. "Go." Thomas walked across his backyard. Birds were singing. The sun was rising. Everything looked normal, beautiful even. But nothing was normal. Nothing was beautiful. The guest house door was unlocked. Thomas stepped inside. The space looked wrong, bare. The warm photos that had covered the walls were gone. The comfortable furniture Margaret had picked out, replaced with sparse, minimal pieces. The kitchen cabinets had padlocks on them. Padlocks. His mother had been locked out of her own kitchen. "Mom?" Thomas called. A door opened slowly. Margaret appeared, thin. God, when had she gotten so thin? And pale. A bruise darkened her left cheek. She stared at Thomas with wide, fearful eyes. "Thomas?" Her voice was tiny. Is Rebecca?" "She's being arrested," Thomas's voice broke. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I should have seen it. I should have protected you." Margaret's face crumpled. 18 months of terror, of abuse, of suffering in silence. It all poured out. Thomas crossed the room and pulled his mother into his arms. She felt so small, so fragile. "I was so scared," Margaret sobbed into his chest. "She said you wouldn't believe me. She said she'd make you think I was crazy. She said she'd hurt Jamie." "I know. I heard her. She can't hurt anyone anymore." Margaret pulled back, searching his face. "But Thomas, there's more. She's been working with other people. A doctor, a lawyer. They're all in on it. And she has pills, hidden in my room." She was going to say they were mine, that I was addicted or confused or... "We'll find everything," Thomas promised. "We'll document all of it. You're safe now." But even as he said it, he wondered. Rebecca had been planning this for so long, had been so careful. What else had she done? What other traps had she set? In the main house, they could hear Rebecca still screaming. Her voice carried across the yard. "You'll never prove anything. I'll get the best lawyer. I'll tell them Thomas coached his senile mother. I'll destroy all of you." Detective Winters appeared in the doorway of the guest house. "Mr. Brennan? Paramedics are here to evaluate your mother, and we need to document the scene." Thomas nodded. He helped Margaret to a chair on the small porch. Paramedics approached gently, kindly, starting their assessment. David came over, his expression grim. "Thomas, you need to see something." They walked to the main house. In the kitchen, officers were bagging evidence. Rebecca's laptop, her phone, files from the office. "We found something else," David said quietly. "In her car. A suitcase, packed. Tickets to Mexico. 2 tickets. Her name and a man named Scott Palmer. Departure date, December 16th. The day after Rebecca had planned to move Margaret to Spokane. She was going to run, Thomas said. After she got Mom out of the way, she was going to take everything and disappear. David nodded. "With her boyfriend. We're tracking him down now." Thomas thought about the email he'd seen. Alternative solutions. He thought about Rebecca's threats, about how far she'd been willing to go. "David," Thomas said slowly, "if I hadn't come home early yesterday, if I hadn't heard that conversation—" "Don't think about that," David said. But his expression said enough. They both knew what might have happened. Thomas looked at his mother, sitting with the paramedics, answering their gentle questions. Margaret was alive, was safe, was free. But she'd come so close to not being any of those things. And Thomas had to live with knowing he'd almost missed it, almost lost her, almost let the monster in his bed destroy the person he loved most. In the police car, Rebecca had finally stopped screaming. She sat in silence, her face blank, already calculating her next move. But it was too late. The evidence was overwhelming. The recording was damning. The financial trail was clear. Rebecca had spent 18 months building a perfect trap, and in one afternoon, Thomas had torn it all down. Rebecca stopped screaming the moment they put her in the interrogation room. Just stopped. Like someone had flipped a switch. Detective Winters watched through the one-way glass as Rebecca sat perfectly still, hands folded on the metal table, face blank. "That's not normal," Thomas said. He stood next to Winters, still wearing yesterday's suit, coffee going cold in his hand. He hadn't slept. Couldn't. "No," Winters agreed. "Most people in her situation are still emotional, crying, yelling, bargaining. She's calculating." Rebecca stared at the mirror, not at it, through it, like she knew exactly where Thomas was standing. "She's done this before," Thomas said, not a question. Winters pulled out a file. "We ran her background after you called David Chen. Rebecca Ann Foster, born 1985 in Phoenix, married at 22 to a man named Derek Foster. He died 2 years later." Thomas's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. Died how? Fall down the stairs in their home. Head trauma. Rebecca was the only witness. Said he'd been drinking, lost his balance. Investigation found no evidence of foul play. She inherited everything. House, life insurance, savings. $340,000 total. Jesus. It gets better. Or worse, depending. She moved to Portland after that. Different name, Rebecca Martin. Dated a widower named George Martin for 18 months. He added her to his accounts, made her beneficiary on his life insurance. Then he died. Carbon monoxide leak in his garage. Rebecca was conveniently staying at a friend's house that night. Thomas felt sick. How much? $500,000. The family tried to contest it, but she had documentation. Texts showing he was depressed. Emails about him being forgetful with the car running. Made it look like suicide or accident. And nobody caught the pattern? Different states, different names. She was smart about it. Waited years between incidents. Changed her appearance. And Thomas? Winters met his eyes. You were number 3. The room tilted. Thomas sat down hard in the nearest chair. She was going to kill me? We think so. After she got control of your mother's assets and your son was... Winters stopped. Was what? Thomas, we found searches on her laptop, recent ones, about accidental deaths that affect young men. Drowning, car accidents, drug overdoses that look unintentional. Thomas stood up so fast his chair hit the wall. Jamie. Where's Jamie? Campus security is with him. He's safe. But Thomas? She was researching his dorm layout, his roommate's schedule, the campus security patterns. The door burst open. David Chen came in with a woman Thomas didn't recognize. She was older, maybe 60, with sharp eyes and a briefcase. Thomas, this is Patricia Alvarez. She's a forensic psychologist we've worked with before. She's been reviewing Rebecca's case. Patricia shook Thomas's hand. Her grip was firm. "Mr. Brennan, your wife exhibits classic signs of a black widow killer. They're rare but distinctive. Charming, manipulative, patient. They target vulnerable people, usually those grieving or isolated. They build trust, gain access to assets, then eliminate the victim once they have what they need." "She called my mother senile," Thomas said. His voice sounded far away. "She was going to have her committed." "That's the interesting part," Patricia said. "Most black widows just kill, quickly, efficiently. But Rebecca was dragging this out, torturing your mother psychologically for months. That suggests something else."
What?
"Sadism. She enjoyed it. The control, the fear. Making your mother suffer was part of the gratification." In the interrogation room, Rebecca smiled. Small. Private. Like she'd heard a joke no one else would get. Thomas wanted to put his fist through the glass. "We need a confession," Winters said. "Or more evidence. What we have is strong, but a good defense attorney could create reasonable doubt, especially about intent to murder." "She threatened my son on tape," Thomas said. "Verbally. Her lawyer will argue it was just angry talk, frustration, not actual intent. We need proof she was actively planning to hurt someone." The door opened again. A uniformed officer leaned in. "Detective, Scott Palmer just tried to board a flight to Cancun. Airport police have him." Winters smiled. "Let's see if Mr. Palmer is as loyal as Rebecca thinks." 20 minutes later, they had Scott Palmer in a different interrogation room. He was nothing like Thomas expected. Mid-30s, expensive suit. Looked like a banker or lawyer. Handsome in a generic way. He was also terrified. "I didn't know she was going to hurt anyone," Scott said the moment Winters sat down. "I thought it was just financial stuff. Documents. I'm a paralegal. I help with paperwork. That's all." "Mr. Palmer, we found emails between you and Rebecca discussing timeline acceleration and permanent solutions. What did those phrases mean?" Scott's face drained of color. "I want a lawyer." "That's your right. But I should mention, we also found $125,000 transferred from Margaret Brennan's accounts to an offshore account in your name. That's elder abuse, fraud, conspiracy. You're looking at 20 years minimum." "Unless," David Chen added, leaning forward, "you cooperate. Tell us everything. Help us prove Rebecca's intent. Then maybe we can talk about a deal." Scott looked at the ceiling, looked at the door, looked at his hands. "She killed her first husband," he said finally. "Derek Foster. She told me. We were drunk one night and she just said it. I pushed him down the stairs and everyone believed me. She thought it was funny." Thomas closed his eyes, listening from the next room, hearing it confirmed. "And George Martin?" Winters asked. "Carbon monoxide. She disconnected the detector the night before. Made sure he'd be in the garage long enough. Then she reset everything before anyone checked." "What was the plan with Margaret Brennan?" Scott hesitated. "Rebecca wanted to drain the accounts first. She figured the old lady had maybe 6 months of fight left in her. So we'd take everything, set up the nursing home in Spokane, get her declared incompetent. Then once all the assets were secured, Rebecca was going to adjust her medications." "Adjust how?" "Increase the blood pressure meds, decrease the heart medication. Create a cardiac event. Make it look natural. Old woman with existing conditions dies in her sleep. No one questions it." Thomas had heard enough. He walked out of the observation room, down the hall, kept walking until he was outside. The morning air was cold. Good. He needed cold. David found him 5 minutes later. "Thomas, she was going to murder my mother." Thomas's voice cracked. Slowly, painfully, while I sat at the dinner table every night making conversation. "But you stopped it. You saved her." Did I? Or did I just get lucky? If the Henderson account hadn't closed early, if I hadn't come home at that exact moment. Don't do that. Don't torture yourself with what-ifs. Thomas laughed, bitter. I married a serial killer, David. I brought her into my home, gave her access to my mother, my son, my entire life. How do I not torture myself with that? Before David could answer, Winters came outside. Thomas, we need you to see something. Back inside, she pulled up security footage on a laptop. This is from the nursing home in Spokane, Peaceful Meadows. We sent officers there this morning to verify Rebecca's deposit. The video showed a hallway, elderly residents in wheelchairs, nurses moving between rooms. Nothing unusual. Now watch this. Winters fast-forwarded. This is 3 weeks ago. Watch the woman in the blue jacket. Rebecca walked down the hallway. She stopped at a room, looked around, went inside. Stayed for 7 minutes. Came out. Left. She was scouting it, Thomas said, making sure it was isolated enough. That's what we thought too. But then we talked to the staff. That room belongs to an 82-year-old woman named Dorothy Chen. No relation to you. She was admitted 6 months ago by her daughter, except her daughter hasn't visited in weeks. Won't return calls. And when we ran the daughter's name, it's Rebecca, Thomas said. Numb. Under another alias. Rebecca Ford. Dorothy's accounts have been systematically drained. She's completely isolated, and her medications have been adjusted without doctor authorization. Oh my God! Thomas, Dorothy had a heart attack last week. She's in ICU right now, not expected to survive. We think Rebecca was practicing, learning how much medication adjustment she needed, using Dorothy as a test case before doing it to your mother. The room spun. Rebecca hadn't just been planning to kill Margaret. She'd been killing someone else to perfect the method. How many? Thomas asked. How many victims? We don't know yet. We're cross-referencing deaths in nursing homes and elderly individuals in Washington, Oregon, and Arizona over the past 8 years. But Thomas, based on the financial evidence alone, we think there are at least 6. 6 people. 6 families who'd lost someone and never known it was murder. Thomas's phone rang. Jamie.
Dad, they're saying Mom, they're saying Rebecca tried to kill Grandma. That can't be right. Tell me that's not right.
Thomas closed his eyes. His 19-year-old son, who'd called Rebecca Mom for 3 years, who'd trusted her. It's right, Jamie. I'm sorry. It's all true. Silence on the line. Then,
but she made me cookies. She came to my games. She asked about my classes.
I know.
Was any of it real?
No, son. I don't think any of it was real. Jamie's breath hitched.
I want to see Grandma.
She's at the hospital. They're running tests. We can go this afternoon.
Is she okay? Did she hurt her bad?
Thomas thought about the bruises on his mother's face, the padlocks on her kitchen cabinets, the suicide note they'd found hidden in her drawer, dated 2 weeks ago. Never sent, because Rebecca had taken her phone. We got there in time, Thomas said. It was the only answer he could give. At the hospital, Margaret was sitting up in bed when Thomas and Jamie arrived. She looked so small in the hospital gown, so old. When had his mother gotten so old?
Grandma!
Jamie rushed to her side, careful not to hurt her, but needing to touch her, to make sure she was real.
Oh, Jamie,
Margaret's eyes filled with tears.
You shouldn't see me like this. I don't care. I just need you to be okay.
Thomas stood in the doorway, watching his mother hold his son. Margaret caught his eye over Jamie's shoulder. No words, just understanding. She'd been trying to protect Jamie the whole time. That's why she'd stayed silent, why she'd endured months of abuse without telling anyone. because Rebecca had threatened the boy. The doctor came in 30 minutes later. Dr. Susan Park, specialized in elder abuse cases. "Mrs. Brennan, I need to discuss the results of your examination." Margaret nodded. Jamie moved to the chair but kept holding her hand. "You have 3 cracked ribs, likely from blunt force trauma. Multiple contusions in various stages of healing, indicating repeated physical abuse over time. Significant weight loss. You're down 23 pounds from your last checkup 8 months ago. Blood work shows signs of malnutrition and dehydration." Thomas felt his jaw clench. Dr. Park continued. "More concerning is the toxicology screening. We found elevated levels of benzodiazepines in your system, far higher than your prescribed dosage. Someone has been giving you extra medication without your knowledge."
"The pills," Margaret whispered. "Rebecca said they were vitamins. She watched me take them every day."
"They weren't vitamins. They were sedatives. High doses. Enough to cause confusion, memory problems, difficulty concentrating. All symptoms that could be mistaken for dementia."
"She was drugging her," Jamie said, "making her seem sick."
"It's a common tactic in elder abuse cases," Dr. Park said. "Make the victim appear incompetent to justify taking control." A knock at the door. Winters came in with another woman. Older, elegant, looked like money. "Mrs. Brennan, this is Helen Foster. She'd like to speak with you." Helen stepped forward. Her hands were shaking.
"Mrs. Brennan, my son was Derek Foster, Rebecca's first husband."
Margaret's eyes widened.
"The one who died, yes. They told me it was an accident."
I believed them. For 14 years, I believed them. But today, the police came to my house with evidence that Rebecca murdered my son. And I need you to know that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry."
"Sorry for what?"
"I met Rebecca at Derek's funeral. She was so devastated, so broken. I felt sorry for her. I wrote her a letter afterward, telling her if she ever needed anything, to call me. And she did. A year later. Asked for advice about dating again, about moving on. I encouraged her, told her Derek would want her to be happy. And she asked me," Helen's voice broke. "She asked me how Derek had died. Wanted to know if he'd suffered. I told her everything. The fall, the head trauma, how long he'd been alive before dying. And I think she used that information to do it again." The room went silent. "You couldn't have known," Margaret said gently. "I helped her perfect her method, and then she hurt you. Hurt all those other people, because I was stupid enough to help a monster." Thomas's phone buzzed. Text from David. "Get back to station now. Rebecca talking." At the police station, Rebecca was speaking for the first time. Thomas entered the observation room just as she started. "I want full immunity," Rebecca said. Her voice was calm, pleasant. "Complete protection from prosecution in exchange for information about other cases." "Other cases?" Winters asked. Rebecca smiled. "You think Margaret Brennan was going to be my third victim? Oh, detective, I've been doing this for 12 years. Dorothy Chen was number 8. Or was it 9? I lose track." Thomas felt his knees buckle. David caught his arm. 8 victims? Winters kept her voice level. Professional. At least. Maybe more. Some were so easy they barely count. Lonely old men who signed over everything after a few months of attention. Women who trusted the nice young caregiver. It's pathetic, really, how easy it is. "Why?" "Why?" Rebecca laughed. "Because I can. Because they're weak and I'm not. Because the world is full of stupid, trusting people who deserve what they get." "And Margaret Brennan?" Rebecca's smile faded. Margaret was different. She fought back, kept trying to tell Thomas things, kept refusing to sign papers. I hate being told no. So I made her suffer for it. Every single day. And you know what? I enjoyed it. Every tear, every time she begged. I loved it. Thomas walked out before he could hear more. He made it to the bathroom, barely, before throwing up. His hands shook as he gripped the sink. She'd enjoyed it. Torturing his mother had been fun for her. "Thomas?" David's voice from outside the door. "You okay?" "No." Thomas splashed water on his face. "I'm not okay. I don't know if I'll ever be okay again." But when he walked back out, there was someone new in the hallway. A woman, maybe 70, with a cane and tired eyes.
"Are you Thomas Brennan?" she asked.
"Yes?"
"My name is Ruth Martinez. I saw the news this morning about Rebecca Foster, or Rebecca Chen, or whatever name she's using now."
"Did she hurt someone you know?"
"My husband, 5 years ago in Portland. We thought it was a heart attack. Natural. He was 76. But he'd been healthy, active. And then he hired a home health aide named Rebecca Martin. 6 weeks later, he was dead."
"I'm sorry," Thomas said. Inadequate words.
But what else was there?
"The police said there wasn't enough evidence to investigate. That old people die. But I knew, in my gut, I knew something was wrong. And now I find out I was right. She killed him. She killed my husband and took his money, and I couldn't prove it." Other people were coming down the hallway now. More elderly individuals. More grieving family members. All of them with the same story. All of them watching the news and recognizing Rebecca's face. By noon, 7 families had come forward. By evening, 12. Each one with a loved one who died suspiciously after meeting Rebecca. Each one ignored by police because there wasn't enough evidence. Because Rebecca was smart, patient, careful. Thomas listened to their stories, heard the guilt in their voices, the same guilt he felt. Why didn't I see it? Why didn't I stop her? Why wasn't I enough to protect them?
"Mr. Brennan?"
A young woman approached.
"My name is Sarah Foster."
"Derek Foster was my brother." Thomas shook her hand. "I met your mother earlier."
"I know. She called me. And I need you to understand something. When Derek died, Rebecca got everything. But there was one thing she didn't know about. Derek had a storage unit with journals. He'd been writing about Rebecca for months before he died. About how her behavior changed, how she became controlling, how she isolated him from family, how he was scared of her."
"Did you show the police?"
"I tried."
"They said it wasn't enough. Just a troubled man's paranoid writings. But Mr. Brennan, the last entry in that journal was dated the day before he died. Derek wrote, 'Rebecca asked me to change my will, make her the sole beneficiary. She said if I loved her, I'd do it. I said I needed to think about it. She got angry, really angry. I'm afraid of what she'll do if I say no.'" Thomas felt cold. He knew. He knew. And he died anyway, because no one believed him. That night, Thomas couldn't go home. The house felt contaminated, poisoned. Every room held memories of Rebecca. Rebecca cooking dinner. Rebecca laughing at the kitchen table. Rebecca kissing him goodnight. All of it lies. He stayed at a hotel, stared at the ceiling, thought about his mother locked in the guest house while he'd been sleeping 20 yards away. Thought about Jamie, who'd lost a stepmother he'd grown to love. Thought about all the victims who died alone, afraid, not believed. At 2 a.m., his phone rang. David. They found something else. In Rebecca's car. A notebook. Thomas, she kept records. Every victim, how much she took, how she killed them, her success rate, like it was a game. How many total? 15 confirmed deaths, 8 more suspected. She's been doing this since she was 20 years old. 23 people, minimum. An entire neighborhood's worth of lives, erased for money.
David, how did she pass background checks? How did no one catch this?
Different names in different states. She'd marry her victims, take their last name, then keep it after they died. Built new identities each time. The only thing that stayed consistent was her first name, Rebecca. And even that, she'd sometimes use variations. Becca, Becky. Thomas thought about his wedding day. Rebecca in white, smiling, promising to love and cherish, till death do us part. She'd meant it literally. His phone buzzed again. Text from Jamie. Can't sleep. Keep thinking about all the times she was nice to me. Was she planning to kill me too? Thomas called him immediately. I don't know, son. I honestly don't know. The police said she researched my dorm, my schedule. What does that mean? It means you're safe now. That's what matters. But Jamie's question haunted him. Had Rebecca been planning to kill Jamie? Or just use him as leverage? Or was she saving him for later, after Margaret and Thomas were gone? They'd never know, because Rebecca wasn't talking anymore. After her confession about enjoying Margaret's suffering, her lawyer had arrived and shut everything down. No more statements. No more cooperation. She'd said enough to guarantee conviction, but not enough to give the families closure. That was her final cruelty, leaving them wondering forever. The morning after Rebecca's lawyer shut down her confession, Thomas got a call from a number he didn't recognize. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Brennan? My name is Linda Crawford. I'm calling from Spokane. I saw the news about Rebecca Chen. I need you to know something. She didn't succeed with your mother, but she succeeded with mine. Thomas sat down. His hotel room suddenly felt too small. When? 4 months ago. My mother was in Peaceful Meadows, the same facility Rebecca had reserved for your mother. A nurse found her dead one morning. They said it was a heart attack, natural causes. She was 81. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be angry. Because I went through her belongings last week. Found a journal she'd been keeping. Mr. Brennan, she wrote about a woman who visited her. A woman who said she was a volunteer. Who brought her cookies and talked to her and gained her trust. My mother described her perfectly. It was Rebecca. Thomas's grip tightened on the phone. Did she write anything else? She wrote that the woman asked questions about her family, her finances, who would inherit. And in the last entry, 3 days before she died, my mother wrote, "The volunteer brought me tea today. It tasted strange. I feel so tired. I think something is wrong, but when I try to tell the nurses, the words come out confused. I'm scared." We need that journal. The police need it. I'm driving to Seattle right now. I'll be there in 4 hours. Thomas called Winters immediately. By the time Linda Crawford arrived at the police station, they had a warrant to search Peaceful Meadows. What they found made Rebecca's notebook look tame. 13 deaths in that facility in the past year, Winters told Thomas. All elderly, all ruled natural causes. But all of them had received visits from a volunteer matching Rebecca's description, and all of them had unexplained changes to their medication records in the days before they died. 13 more? Thomas felt dizzy. At minimum. We're checking other facilities in the area. But Thomas, here's what's strange. Most of these victims had no significant assets, no large inheritances, Nothing worth Rebecca's time based on her usual pattern. Then why kill them? Patricia Alvarez, the forensic psychologist, had been listening. Practice. Refinement. Serial killers often have this phase. They kill not just for gain, but for the act itself. The power. The control. Rebecca was perfecting her methods on victims who didn't matter financially, so she wouldn't make mistakes when it counted. Thomas thought he might be sick again. She was using them like lab rats. Essentially, yes. David Chen came in carrying a thick file. We got Rebecca's childhood records from Arizona. You need to see this. The file painted a disturbing picture. Rebecca Ann Foster, born Rebecca Ann Taylor. Mother died when she was 7. Father remarried a year later. Stepmother had 2 kids of her own. Young Rebecca suddenly became invisible, ignored, unwanted. She set fires, David said. Small ones at first. The stepmother's clothes, her wedding dress. Then bigger. The garage, her stepbrother's bedroom. He barely got out alive. How old was she? 12. She was removed from the home after that. Foster care. 5 different placements over 6 years. Each one ended the same way. Mysterious accidents. Things breaking. People getting hurt. She was always there, but never technically responsible. Thomas flipped through the records. She learned young. There's more. At 16, she was placed with an elderly couple, the Fosters. They had money, no kids. They fell in love with Rebecca, planned to adopt her. Then Mr. Foster had a stroke, died 3 months later. Mrs. Foster followed 6 months after that. Natural causes, both ruled. But Rebecca inherited everything, $300,000. She was 17, and she disappeared. Showed up 2 years later with a new social security number, new documents, married to Derek Foster. We think she stole the Foster name because it gave her legitimacy, a connection to a respectable family. Derek wasn't her first husband, Thomas realized. He was just the first one we know about. Patricia nodded. We're tracking her movements between 17 and 22. 5 years unaccounted for. But we found something interesting. A missing person report from Nevada. Young man named Christopher Taylor. Disappeared in 2004. He'd been dating a girl named Rebecca. She told police he'd left town suddenly. They believed her. His body was never found. Same last name as her birth name. Could be coincidence. Could be she was trying on identities even then, testing what worked. Thomas's phone rang. Jamie. Dad, something weird just happened. A woman came to my dorm asking questions about Rebecca. Said she was a journalist, but something felt off. She knew too much. Like where my classes are, what time I leave. Thomas stood up fast. Where are you now? Library, studying with friends. But Dad, she showed me a photo. Asked if I recognized the woman in it. Did you? It was Rebecca, but younger, different hair, and she was holding a baby. The room went silent. Everyone was listening now. Jamie, stay where you are. I'm sending campus security to you right now. Don't talk to that woman again if she comes back. Thomas hung up, looked at Winters. Rebecca has a child, or had one. They found the birth certificate 3 hours later. Baby girl, born in Portland, Oregon, 2008. Mother, Rebecca Martin. Father, unknown. Child's name, Sophie Martin. Given up for adoption at 6 weeks old. Why? Thomas asked. Why would she give up a baby? Because babies are inconvenient, Patricia said. They require care, attention, time, things that would interfere with her hunting. We need to find Sophie, Winter said. She's 16 now. If she's anything like her mother, or she's in danger, Thomas interrupted. If Rebecca's accomplices know about her. His phone rang again. Unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered. Thomas? Rebecca's voice. Calling from jail. I heard you found out about Sophie. Clever. But you're wasting your time looking for her. How are you calling me? Lawyers have phones. Inmates have privileges. Don't worry about logistics. Worry about what happens next. Is that a threat? It's a fact. You think putting me in prison ends this? I have friends, people who owe me, people who rely on me, and they don't like being exposed. The line went dead. Thomas's hands shook. She's threatening me from jail. We'll trace the call, Winter said. Find out who helped her make it. But Thomas, she's right about one thing. She has accomplices we haven't identified yet. Scott Palmer was just one. There are others. The next discovery came from an unexpected source. Margaret called Thomas from the hospital. Honey, I remembered something. About 3 months ago, Rebecca had a visitor. A woman. They talked in the main house for hours. I could hear them arguing. And at one point the woman said, You promised me half. I did everything you asked. I want my money. Did you see her? Just through the window. Dark hair, maybe 40. She was wearing scrubs, like a nurse. Nurses. Peaceful Meadows. The medication changes. Mom, this is important. Did Rebecca ever mention anyone who worked at the nursing home? She talked to someone on the phone sometimes. Called her Diane. Said Diane was handling the Spokane arrangements. They found Diane Morrison within hours. Registered nurse at Peaceful Meadows. Bank account showing deposits from Rebecca totaling $85,000 over 8 months. She'd been changing medication records, altering doses, looking the other way while Rebecca visited patients who later died. When police arrested her, Diane broke immediately. Rebecca said it was mercy, Diane sobbed in interrogation. These people were old, suffering, alone. She said we were helping them pass peacefully. And she paid me. God help me. She paid me so much, and I needed the money. How many? Winters asked. 18, maybe 20. I lose count. She'd tell me which patients to focus on, which ones had stubborn families, or too much money, or were too healthy. And I'd adjust their medications, make them weaker, more confused. Then Rebecca would visit and finish it. Thomas listened from the observation room. 20 people. Diane had helped kill 20 people. Did Rebecca ever mention her daughter? Winters asked. Diane's expression changed. Sophie? She talked about her sometimes. Said she was better off without a mother. But then last month, Rebecca showed me a photo on her phone. Sophie at a school event. Rebecca had been tracking her, watching her. I asked why, and she just smiled and said, Insurance. Thomas's blood ran cold. Rebecca had been watching Sophie, a 16-year-old girl who didn't even know Rebecca was her mother. We need to find her now, Thomas said. The adoption records led them to Portland. Sophie Martin, now Sophie Henderson, lived with her adoptive parents in a quiet suburb. Good student, involved in drama club, normal teenage life. Completely unaware that her biological mother was a serial killer who'd been tracking her for years. Detective Winters and Thomas drove to Portland together. They had to warn the Henderson family, had to protect Sophie before Rebecca's other accomplices tried to use her. But when they pulled up to the Henderson house, something was wrong. The front door was open. A car Thomas didn't recognize sat in the driveway. Music played inside, too loud. Winters drew her weapon. Stay behind me. They entered cautiously. The living room was empty, kitchen untouched. Then they heard voices upstairs. Young, female, laughing. Sophie Henderson? Winters called up the stairs. Who's asking? A girl appeared at the top. 16. Dark hair, blue eyes. She looked nothing like Rebecca. Thank God. I'm Detective Winters. This is Thomas Brennan. We need to talk to you and your parents about your biological mother. Sophie's face changed. My biological mother? I don't know anything about her. The adoption was closed. Where are your parents? Work. They'll be home at 6. Why? What's this about? Winters holstered her weapon. Sophie, your biological mother's name is Rebecca Foster, or Rebecca Chen. She's currently in custody for multiple murders. We have reason to believe she's been tracking you and may have put you in danger. Sophie sat down on the stairs, hard. Murders? My mother is a murderer? We need to take you somewhere safe until we understand the full extent of the threat. I'm not going anywhere until my parents get home. Sophie, I said no. The girl's voice turned cold, firm. Something in her eyes that made Thomas's stomach drop. That stubborn tilt of her chin. The way she assessed them. Calculated. She looked exactly like Rebecca. How long have you known? Thomas asked quietly. Sophie's expression didn't change. Known what? That Rebecca was watching you. How long? A pause. Then Sophie smiled. Small. Private. About a year. She sent me a letter. Said she was my mother. Said she wanted to meet me but couldn't because of legal reasons. We've been emailing. Emailing? Winters stepped forward. What did she tell you? Things. About her life, her work. She said she was a financial consultant. Helped elderly people manage their assets. She was proud of how good she was at her job. How much people trusted her. Thomas felt sick. Sophie, what else did she tell you? She said, someday, when I was older, she'd teach me the business. Said I had her instincts. Her intelligence. That together, we could do great things. Did she ever ask you to do anything for her? Sophie stood up. I think you should leave now. My parents will be home soon. Sophie, you need to understand what Rebecca has done. I understand perfectly. She's smart. She's successful. She did what she had to do to survive. And now jealous people are trying to destroy her because they're threatened by strong women. The words were Rebecca's, verbatim. Thomas had heard her say almost the exact same thing about women at the country club who'd crossed her. Sophie, she murdered 23 people. Minimum. You mean she helped suffering elderly people end their pain? There's a difference. Winters pulled out her phone. Sophie Henderson, I need you to come to the station for questioning regarding... I'm a minor. You can't question me without my parents present. And I haven't done anything wrong. You have no probable cause to detain me. She knew the law, knew her rights. How much had Rebecca taught her? Thomas's phone buzzed. Text from David. Found something. Rebecca made Sophie the beneficiary on a life insurance policy. $2 million. If Rebecca dies in prison, Sophie gets everything. Sophie, Thomas said carefully, has Rebecca asked you to do anything specific? Contact anyone? Visit anyone? You should go, before I call my lawyer. A 16-year-old threatening to call her lawyer. They left, got in the car. Winters immediately called for surveillance on the Henderson house. She's been grooming her, Thomas said, for a year at least, turning Sophie into her replacement. Or her revenge, Winters added. If Rebecca goes to prison for life, Sophie becomes her proxy on the outside. She's 16, just a kid. So was Rebecca once, and look how that turned out. Back in Seattle, the case against Rebecca was building. 37 confirmed victims now. Financial records showing over $4 million stolen. Testimony from accomplices. Physical evidence. Audio recordings. It was overwhelming. But Rebecca still wasn't talking, just smiled during every interview, answered every question with "no comment" or "ask my lawyer," until Thomas went to see her. He didn't tell anyone, just drove to the jail, showed his ID, requested a visit. The guard hesitated but allowed it. Rebecca sat behind the plexiglass partition. Orange jumpsuit, hair pulled back, no makeup. She looked younger without all the artifice, more vulnerable. It was an illusion. "Thomas." Her smile was warm, genuine looking. "I wondered when you'd come." "I'm not here to talk to you." "Then why come?" "I need to understand. Not for me, for Mom, for Jamie, for all the families. Why?" Rebecca leaned forward. "You really want to know?" "Yes." "Because I could. Because they were weak and I wasn't. Because taking from them felt better than anything else in my life. Better than love. Better than sex. Better than any drug. Watching them trust me, depend on me, love me even. Then taking everything. Watching them realize too late what I really was. That feeling, that power, nothing compares. You enjoyed their suffering. Every second. Especially your mother. God, she was fun. So desperate to protect you and Jamie. So willing to endure anything. I could have ended it quickly. But where's the satisfaction in that? Thomas's hands clenched. Sophie thinks you care about her. Rebecca's smile widened. Sophie is useful. Smart girl. She'll do well. She's 16. I was younger when I started. She has potential. And unlike you, Thomas, she actually listens. She actually learns. She could be magnificent. I won't let you destroy her, too. You can't stop me. I'm in here, yes. But my reach extends beyond these walls. Sophie will visit me. We'll talk. I'll guide her. And in 10 years, 20 years, she'll be everything I trained her to be. My legacy. Thomas stood up. You're wrong. Sophie has parents who love her. A normal life. She won't become you. Want to bet? I've been studying her for years, Thomas. I know exactly what she wants, what she fears, what drives her, and I know how to shape that. Just like I shaped you. Remember how easy it was? How completely I fooled you? Thomas walked out. He'd gotten what he came for. Confirmation that Rebecca had to be stopped completely. Not just imprisoned. Stopped from ever influencing anyone again. At the police station, he told Winters everything Rebecca had said. We need to get Sophie away from her, Thomas said. Supervised visits only. Recorded. Monitored. Already working on it. But Thomas, there's something else. We found Rebecca's storage unit, the one she kept under her original name. You need to see what's inside. The storage unit was small, climate-controlled, organized. Inside were boxes, dozens of them, each labeled with a name and date. Derek Foster, 2007. George Martin, 2009. Linda Patterson, 2011. On and on. 30 boxes total. What's in them? Thomas asked. Winters opened the first box. Derek Foster. Inside were personal items. His wallet, his watch, his wedding ring. Photos of him and Rebecca. And a journal. Derek's journal. The one his sister had mentioned. Thomas picked it up. Read the last entry. Derek's fear, his suspicion, his realization that Rebecca was dangerous. She kept trophies, Winters said, from every victim. The other boxes held similar items, personal effects, journals, letters, photos. Rebecca had documented everything, kept pieces of the people she'd destroyed. But one box stood out, labeled Thomas Brennan, TBD. Thomas opened it with shaking hands. Inside was his watch, the one he thought he'd lost 2 months ago. His father's cufflinks. Photos of him and Margaret. His mother's medical records. His son's class schedule. A key to his house. And a handwritten note in Rebecca's handwriting. Difficult, but worthwhile. Estimated completion, March 2025. Method, carbon monoxide, home garage. Will stage as suicide due to mother's declining health and work stress. Jamie to follow if necessary, same method. Insurance payout plus Margaret's estate equals $3.2 million total. Rebecca had been planning his death down to the method and timeline. 3 months away. And she would have killed Jamie too, if necessary. Thomas read the note 3 times. Each time the words felt more surreal. "She was going to make it look like I killed myself," he said, voice flat. "Because of stress about Mom's health." "Health problems she caused," Winters added. "And if that didn't work, she'd kill Jamie too."
Make it look like we were both so distraught that we...
Thomas couldn't finish. David put a hand on his shoulder. "But she didn't. You stopped her."
By accident. Pure luck. If I'd stayed at work that day...
Don't. You can't think that way. But Thomas couldn't stop. March 2025 was less than 3 months away. Rebecca had been counting down, preparing. 1 more quarter of torture for Margaret. 1 more season of playing the loving wife. Then she would have killed him, and she would have gotten away with it. Thomas was still holding the note when his phone rang. Margaret, calling from the hospital at 11 p.m. She never called this late.
"Thomas, someone tried to get into my room."
His blood froze.
"What?" "A nurse I'd never seen before. Said she needed to adjust my IV. But Thomas, my IV was fine. And when I asked her name, she got nervous, said she was new. Then another nurse came in, and the first one just left. Didn't say anything, just walked out."
"I'm coming right now. Don't let anyone in your room who you don't recognize. I'm calling hospital security." Thomas ran, left the storage unit, left Winters and David staring after him, got in his car, called hospital security while driving. "This is Thomas Brennan. My mother, Margaret Brennan, is in room 412. Someone just tried to access her room. I need security there now. No one goes in except approved medical staff." He made it to the hospital in 12 minutes. Security was already posted outside Margaret's room. The charge nurse was reviewing badge logs.
"Mr. Brennan, we have a problem. The woman who entered your mother's room, her badge was legitimate, but the photo doesn't match the person on our security cameras."
"Someone stole a badge?"
"Or made a fake one. We're checking all staff right now, but whoever she was, she's gone."
Thomas entered his mother's room. Margaret sat upright in bed, hands shaking. "Did you see her face clearly?" Thomas asked.
"Young, maybe 25. Dark hair in a ponytail. She had a syringe. Said it was antibiotics. But Thomas, I'm not on antibiotics."
The charge nurse paled.
"Mrs. Brennan, did she touch your IV line?" "She reached for it, but then the other nurse came in."
They checked the IV bag, tested it, found traces of potassium chloride, enough to cause cardiac arrest. Untraceable in an elderly patient with existing heart conditions. "Someone tried to murder her," Thomas said. "Tonight, while she's under guard." Winters arrived 20 minutes later with FBI agents. The case had gone federal. Multiple states, multiple victims. Now, attempted murder in a hospital. "Rebecca made a phone call from jail today," Winters said, "to a prepaid cell. We couldn't trace it. But this attack happened 3 hours after that call. She ordered a hit from prison. We're moving your mother. Federal protection. Secure facility.
And Thomas, we need to move you and Jamie too.
What about Sophie Henderson?" Portland PD has surveillance on her house. But Thomas, there's more. Sophie left school early today. Told her parents she was sick. But security cameras show her getting into a car with an older woman. They drove to an internet cafe, stayed for 2 hours. Then Sophie went home. Who was the woman? We don't know yet, but we tracked her license plate. It's registered to a shell company. Same shell company that Rebecca used for the Spokane nursing home deposits. Thomas felt his chest tighten. Rebecca has more people. A whole network we haven't found. FBI is working on it. But until we identify everyone, you're all in danger. They moved Margaret that night. Undisclosed location. Federal marshals. Thomas wasn't allowed to know where she was. For her safety and yours, they said. Jamie was pulled from his dorm, given a new temporary identity, moved to a safe house 3 hours from Seattle. Thomas went to a hotel under a fake name. Agent Michelle Torres stayed in the room next door. How long? Thomas asked her. How long do we have to hide? Until Rebecca's trial. Once she's convicted, once her network knows she can't pay them anymore, the threat should diminish. Should? I won't lie to you, Mr. Brennan. People like Rebecca inspire loyalty through fear and money, sometimes both. Even if she's in prison for life, some followers might continue her work, out of devotion or revenge. Thomas didn't sleep, lay in the unfamiliar hotel bed thinking about Rebecca's box with his name on it. March 2025. She'd planned everything down to the week. The next morning, David brought news. They found the woman who tried to kill Margaret. Name's Ashley Chen. No relation to you. She's a pharmacy tech. Rebecca paid her $50,000 to infiltrate the hospital and finish what she started. Is she talking? She's terrified. Says Rebecca promised her protection. Said no one would ever find out. But now she's facing attempted murder charges, and Rebecca can't help her from jail. How many more are there? How many people did Rebecca recruit? FBI thinks at least 10, maybe 15, all with different roles. Some helped with the financial fraud, some with the medical murders, some were just lookouts or information gatherers. It's a sophisticated operation. Thomas's phone buzzed. Email from an unknown address. Subject line, "You should have died." He opened it. Single line of text. March was supposed to be your month. She promised me your house. Now I have to take it the hard way. Attached was a photo. Thomas's house. From inside. Taken yesterday. Someone had been in his home. David, Thomas showed him the email. Don't respond. Forward it to Winters. We need to trace this. But Thomas was already calling his neighbor, Mr. Caldwell. Did you see anyone at my house yesterday? Actually, yes. A moving truck. I thought maybe you were storing some things. Should I have called you? What did they take? I don't know. They were there for about an hour, left with boxes. Thomas's house had been robbed. By people Rebecca had sent. People who thought they deserved something because she'd promised it to them. How do we stop them? Thomas asked. If there are 10 or 15 people out there who think I owe them, we find them first, David said. FBI is tracking financial records, every payment Rebecca made, every email, every contact. They'll identify the network and shut it down. But that night, another email came. Different address. Same threat. She said I'd get the insurance money. You ruined everything. Then another. Your mother should have died when she was supposed to. Finish it, or we will. Then another. Sophie is ours now. You can't protect her. Thomas forwarded all of them to the FBI. But the messages kept coming. 5, 10, 20. All from different addresses. All threatening. Rebecca's followers were panicking. Their meal ticket was in prison. Their promised payouts weren't coming, and they blamed Thomas for destroying their plans. Agent Torres increased security. Don't go anywhere alone. Don't answer calls from numbers you don't recognize. Don't open any packages. These people are desperate, and desperate people are dangerous. The trial date was set, 3 months away, March 15th. The same month Rebecca had planned to kill Thomas. The irony wasn't lost on him. The prosecution's case was overwhelming. 37 victims confirmed. Financial records showing $4.3 million stolen. Testimony from accomplices. Physical evidence. The storage unit with its boxes of trophies. Audio recordings of Rebecca admitting she enjoyed the torture. But Rebecca's lawyer was good. Expensive. Paid for by money Rebecca had hidden in offshore accounts that police hadn't found yet. Our defense is simple, the lawyer announced at a pretrial hearing. My client suffers from severe mental illness, borderline personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder. She's not criminally responsible for her actions. Patricia Alvarez, the forensic psychologist, testified against this. Rebecca Foster exhibits signs of psychopathy. But psychopathy doesn't equal insanity. She knew exactly what she was doing. She planned meticulously. She covered her tracks. She understood the difference between right and wrong. She simply didn't care. The judge agreed. Competent to stand trial. No insanity defense allowed. Rebecca's lawyer tried a different tactic. The so-called confessions were coerced. My client was under duress, sleep-deprived, traumatized by false accusations. But the audio recordings contradicted this. Rebecca had been calm, detailed, almost proud when describing her crimes. Then we'll argue that the victims were elderly, suffering, and my client was providing mercy. Assisted end-of-life care. Mercy, Thomas exploded in David's office. She tortured my mother for 18 months. She stole from them. She made them suffer. That's not mercy. We know. The jury will know. But her lawyer has to try something. 3 weeks before trial, they got a break. FBI found Rebecca's main accomplice, not Scott Palmer. Someone bigger. Someone who'd been there from the beginning. His name was Marcus Webb, former attorney, disbarred for ethics violations. He'd been helping Rebecca for 8 years, creating fake documents, setting up shell companies, laundering money. He'd personally helped her kill at least 12 people. When FBI arrested him at his office in Portland, they found evidence of 43 victims, not 37. 43, 6 more than they'd known about. Rebecca started younger than we thought, Winters told Thomas. First confirmed kill was at 19. College boyfriend. Made it look like a drug overdose. She's been doing this for 24 years. 24 years. Thomas tried to comprehend that. Rebecca had been murdering people since before he'd graduated high school. Marcus Webb cut a deal. Full cooperation in exchange for life, with possibility of parole instead of execution. He gave them everything. Names of other accomplices, bank account numbers, details of every victim he'd helped with. And he gave them something else. Rebecca has a backup plan, Marcus told FBI. If she goes to prison, she activates what she calls her insurance policy. What kind of insurance? She has files on everyone she's ever worked with, every accomplice, every victim's family member she thinks wronged her. Information that could destroy lives. She's threatened to release everything unless specific demands are met. What demands? Sophie Henderson inherits everything. No arrest of Sophie, regardless of what she's done. And Thomas Brennan has to publicly state that Rebecca was a good wife who he misunderstood. Thomas laughed, bitter. She wants me to defend her? After everything? It's control, Patricia explained. Even from prison, she wants to control the narrative. Control you. Make you play along, or she destroys more lives. I won't do it. We know. But Thomas, You need to understand what releasing those files could mean. There are victims' family members who've moved on, rebuilt their lives. If Rebecca exposes what happened, their trauma starts over. There are accomplices who've cooperated with us. If their names go public, they're in danger. And there are innocent people whose information Rebecca collected for future targets. She could ruin hundreds of lives. So what do? We call her bluff, release our own statement, make it clear that anyone who follows Rebecca's instructions will be charged as an accomplice after the fact. And we move the trial up, next week instead of March. Can you do that? Judge agreed. Given the ongoing threats and attempts on witnesses' lives, he's expediting everything. 7 days. The trial would start in 7 days. Thomas spent those days in preparation, going over his testimony with the prosecutors, reviewing evidence, trying to remember every detail of his life with Rebecca that might help convict her. But at night, alone in his hotel room, he thought about the box with his name on it. March 2025. Carbon monoxide. Staged suicide. He'd been 3 months away from death, and he'd had no idea. On the morning of the trial, Thomas saw Rebecca for the first time since her arrest. She walked into the courtroom in a suit. Not an orange jumpsuit. A suit. Looking professional. Composed. Like she was there for a business meeting instead of a murder trial. She smiled at him. Thomas didn't smile back. The jury was selected quickly. 7 women, 5 men. Ages ranging from 30 to 70. The prosecution wanted older jurors who'd identify with the victims. The defense wanted younger ones who might buy the mental illness angle. Opening statements started at 10 a.m. Prosecutor Rachel Martinez spoke first. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a case about a predator, a woman who spent 24 years hunting vulnerable people. Elderly individuals who'd lost spouses and were lonely. Widowers looking for companionship. People who trusted easily because they believed in the inherent goodness of others. Rebecca Foster found those people, gained their trust, then systematically destroyed them. She didn't just kill them. She tortured them first. Financially, emotionally, psychologically. She made them suffer because she enjoyed it. And when she was done, when she'd taken everything they had, she murdered them. Martinez pulled up photos. 43 victims, their faces filling the screen. These are real people. They had families, children, grandchildren, dreams, lives. And Rebecca Foster ended all of that. For money, for power, for fun. Rebecca's lawyer stood for his opening statement. You're going to hear terrible things in this trial. Tragic deaths, lost money, broken families. But what you won't hear is the truth about Rebecca Foster, a woman who suffered severe childhood trauma, who was abandoned by her mother's death and her father's remarriage, who developed serious mental health conditions as a result. Did Rebecca make mistakes? Yes. Did she hurt people? Yes. But was she a cold-blooded killer who understood what she was doing? The evidence will show she wasn't. She was a sick woman who needed help, not punishment. Thomas wanted to scream. Sick? Rebecca had organized a murder-for-hire network, had kept trophies from her victims, had planned his death down to the week. That wasn't sickness. That was evil. The first witness was Margaret. She walked to the stand slowly, still recovering, still fragile. But her voice was steady when she spoke. Mrs. Brennan, Martinez said gently, can you tell the jury how you met the defendant? She came to my home with my son Thomas. He was happy, hopeful. She seemed wonderful, charming, interested in our family. I thought Thomas had finally found someone good after his divorce. When did things change? After the wedding. Within weeks, she became cold, controlling. She criticized everything I did, told me I was a burden, that Thomas would be better off if I just went into a home and stopped bothering him. Did she ever hurt you physically? Yes, many times. She would hit me, push me, grab my arms hard enough to leave bruises. Once she locked me in a closet for 6 hours because I asked to see my grandson. Rebecca's face showed no emotion, just watched Margaret like she was describing weather. Did you tell your son what was happening? I tried, but Rebecca threatened me. She said if I told Thomas, she'd hurt my grandson, Jamie. She knew where his dorm was, his class schedule, everything. She said accidents happen to college students all the time. I believed her, so I stayed quiet. For how long? 18 months. 18 months of being scared in my own home. 18 months of being locked in the guest house like a prisoner. 18 months of wishing I'd die just to make it stop. Several jurors wiped their eyes. One older woman stared at Rebecca with open disgust. Rebecca's lawyer cross-examined Margaret carefully. Mrs. Brennan, isn't it true you've been diagnosed with memory problems? I had some issues after my husband died, grief-related, but multiple doctors have confirmed I don't have dementia or cognitive decline. But you were confused about your medications, weren't you? Because Rebecca was mixing them up on purpose, to make me seem incompetent. That's speculation. You don't know what Rebecca's intentions were. I know what she told me, that she was going to have me committed, that she was going to take everything, that I'd die alone in the facility far away from my family. The lawyer had no response to that. Thomas testified next. Walked through his relationship with Rebecca, how she'd seemed perfect, how she'd fooled him completely, how he'd trusted her with his mother's care. Mr. Brennan, Martinez asked, when did you first suspect something was wrong? I came home early from work, heard my wife threatening my mother through the guest house window. I recorded the conversation. In it, Rebecca admitted to stealing money, threatening my son, planning to have my mother institutionalized, and enjoying the torture. What did you do? I gathered evidence. Bank statements showing theft, fake medical documents, security footage showing Rebecca had been isolating my mother for months. Then I called the police. And during this time, you didn't confront Rebecca? I was told not to, that she'd destroy evidence or escalate the situation. I had to pretend everything was normal while knowing what she'd been doing to my mother. That must have been difficult. Thomas's voice broke. I sat across from her at dinner, made conversation, acted like I didn't know she was planning to kill me, kill my son, like I didn't know my mother was locked in the guest house, hungry and scared. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Why didn't you confront her? Because I needed to protect my family. And the only way to do that was to build an airtight case that she couldn't talk her way out of. Rebecca's lawyer tried to paint Thomas as paranoid, overly protective, someone who'd misinterpreted normal caregiver stress. Mr. Brennan, isn't it possible you misunderstood your wife's intentions? That what you saw as abuse was actually frustration with a difficult care situation? No. Thomas's voice was ice. I heard her threaten my son's life. I found $67,000 stolen from my mother's accounts. I discovered fake medical records. There's no misunderstanding that. But you admit you were under stress, working long hours, grieving your father's death. Maybe your judgment was impaired. My judgment was fine. The evidence speaks for itself. The trial continued for 3 weeks. Witness after witness. Family members of victims testifying about loved ones who'd trusted Rebecca and died. Accomplices describing their roles in the murders. FBI agents explaining the financial fraud. Forensic experts detailing how the murders were committed. And through it all, Rebecca sat calmly, taking notes, whispering to her lawyer, showing no remorse. Until Sophie Henderson entered the courtroom. Sophie Henderson walked into the courtroom wearing jeans and a university sweatshirt. 16 years old, but she carried herself older, confident. She looked at Rebecca. Rebecca stared back. For the first time in 3 weeks, emotion crossed Rebecca's face. Hope. "Miss Henderson," Prosecutor Martinez said, "you're here under subpoena. You understand you must tell the truth."
"Yes, ma'am."
"How do you know the defendant?"
"She's my biological mother. I was adopted as a baby. She contacted me a year ago."
Thomas leaned forward. This was the moment they'd been dreading. If Sophie defended Rebecca, if she'd been successfully groomed, the jury might see Rebecca as a loving mother instead of a monster. "What did she tell you when she made contact?" Sophie's jaw tightened. "She said she was my mother, that she'd given me up because she wasn't ready to be a parent, that she'd become successful and wanted to reconnect." "Did you believe her?"
"At first, she was charming, seemed genuinely interested in my life."
She asked about school, my friends, my plans for college. It felt nice, having a biological mother who cared. "When did that change?" Sophie looked at Rebecca. "About 6 months ago. She started asking different questions about my adoptive parents' finances, their schedules, if they traveled, if they had life insurance." The courtroom went silent. At first, I thought she was just curious. But then she sent me articles about elderly people dying, about inheritance laws, about how adopted children can contest wills. And she started teaching me things. What kind of things? How to forge signatures, how to access bank accounts without authorization, how to make deaths look like accidents. Sophie's voice cracked. She called them lessons, said they were skills I'd need for the family business. Rebecca's face went blank, calculating. Thomas could see her mind working, trying to figure out how to salvage this. "Did you ever participate in any of these activities?" "No, because 3 months ago, I contacted the FBI." The courtroom erupted. Rebecca's lawyer jumped up. "Objection! This witness has been cooperating with law enforcement? That's entrapment!" The judge banged his gavel. "Overruled. The witness may continue." Sophie pulled out her phone. "I recorded every conversation, every email, every lesson. I gave it all to the FBI. Because once I understood what she really was, I knew I had to stop her." Martinez played the recordings. Rebecca's voice teaching a 16-year-old girl how to kill people, how to steal from elderly victims, how to manipulate grieving families. The jury looked horrified. "Miss Henderson, why did you pretend to go along with her?" "FBI agent Torres asked me to. Said it was the only way to gather evidence on Rebecca's accomplices." "The woman who drove me to the internet cafe?" "She was trying to recruit me into the network. But I was wearing a wire. We got her on tape." Thomas felt relief wash over him. Sophie hadn't been corrupted. She'd been helping catch Rebecca. "One more question," Martinez said. "Rebecca is your biological mother. Do you have any feelings of loyalty toward her?" Sophie looked at Rebecca again. "She gave birth to me, but she's not my mother. My real parents are in Portland. They raised me, loved me, taught me right from wrong. Rebecca? She's just a murderer who happens to share my DNA." Rebecca's mask finally cracked. Rage flashed across her face. Pure hatred directed at her own daughter. The defense had no questions. What could they ask? Sophie had demolished their case in 10 minutes. The final witness was Dr. Patricia Alvarez, the forensic psychologist. She'd spent hours evaluating Rebecca. "Doctor," Alvarez, "is the defendant mentally ill?" "Rebecca Foster exhibits clear signs of psychopathy, lack of empathy, superficial charm, manipulative behavior, narcissism. But psychopathy is not a mental illness in the legal sense. It's a personality disorder. Rebecca understands right from wrong. She simply doesn't care. Can you explain that distinction for the jury? A person with schizophrenia might hear voices telling them to hurt someone. They truly believe it's necessary. That's mental illness. Rebecca knew killing was wrong. She planned carefully to avoid getting caught. That proves she understood the wrongness of her actions. She just chose to do it anyway. Is there any possibility Rebecca can be rehabilitated? No. Studies show psychopaths don't respond to traditional therapy. They often become better at manipulation, more skilled at hiding their true nature. Rebecca would use any treatment program to hone her abilities, not change her behavior. Rebecca's lawyer tried one last attack. Dr. Alvarez, you've only evaluated my client twice. How can you make such definitive statements? I've evaluated her psychological history, her behavioral patterns over 24 years, interviews with victims and accomplices, and her own recorded statements. She planned 43 murders, executed them successfully, enjoyed the suffering she caused. That's not mental illness. That's evil in its purest form. The prosecution rested. Rebecca's defense lasted one day. Character witnesses who'd known her briefly and thought she was nice. A psychologist who disagreed with Dr. Alvarez but couldn't refute the evidence. It was weak, and everyone knew it. Closing arguments came next. Martinez spoke directly to the jury. Rebecca Foster isn't a victim of mental illness. She's a predator who found vulnerable people and destroyed them. She tortured Margaret Brennan for 18 months. She planned to murder Thomas Brennan and his son. She killed 43 people that we know of. Maybe more we haven't found yet. She kept trophies from her victims. She enjoyed their suffering. And when caught, she showed no remorse, only anger that her plans were interrupted. This woman cannot be allowed to hurt anyone ever again. Rebecca's lawyer made his final plea. My client had a difficult childhood, trauma that shaped her development. She needs help, not punishment. Life in a mental health facility where she can receive treatment. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood. She was 70 years old, had probably buried parents, maybe a spouse. She looked at Rebecca with contempt. On the charge of first-degree murder of Derek Foster, how do you find? Guilty. On the charge of first-degree murder of George Martin? Guilty. 43 counts. Guilty on every one. Additional charges: elder abuse, fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder of Margaret Brennan. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Rebecca showed nothing, just sat there as her life ended. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge was an older man, experienced. He presided over murder trials for 30 years. But Thomas could see this one affected him differently. Miss Foster, I've seen evil in this courtroom before. But rarely have I seen evil so calculated, so patient, so cruel. You didn't just kill your victims. You made them suffer first. You destroyed their sense of safety, their dignity, their will to live. You targeted the most vulnerable members of our society, and you enjoyed it. Rebecca stared ahead, silent. For the murder of Derek Foster, life without parole. For the murder of George Martin, life without parole. For each of the 43 victims, life without parole. Sentences to run consecutively. Additionally, 43 consecutive life sentences for the financial fraud and elder abuse charges. The math was staggering. Even if she lived to be 200, Rebecca would never see freedom. Furthermore, the judge continued, you are ordered to pay restitution to the victims' families. Every asset you have, legal or hidden, will be seized. You will die in prison with nothing. as you left your victims with nothing. Do you have anything to say? Rebecca stood, smiled. Yes, Your Honor, I have something to say. The courtroom tensed. I'm not sorry. Not for any of it. Those people were weak. They deserved what happened. And Thomas? She turned to look at him. You were supposed to die in March. Carbon monoxide in your garage. I had it all planned. You would have sat in your car, fallen asleep, never woken up. And everyone would have believed you'd killed yourself because of stress over your mother's declining health. It would have been perfect. Ms. Foster, the judge started. I'm not finished. Margaret should have died months ago, but she kept fighting, kept trying to tell Thomas things. So I made her suffer extra, locked her in closets, withheld food, hid her where the bruises wouldn't show. And Jamie, your precious son? He was next. After you died, I'd have convinced him to come live with me. Grieving, vulnerable. Within a year, he'd have had a tragic accident too, and I'd have gotten everything. Thomas felt sick. She was confessing to plans they hadn't even known about. And you know what the best part is? I have followers, people who believe in me, who want to continue my work. You can put me in prison, but you can't stop them. They'll keep hunting, keep killing, and someday, somehow, they'll finish what I started. The judge's face darkened. Miss Foster, you're now adding threatening witnesses to your charges. Bailiff, take her away. As guards moved toward Rebecca, she lunged toward the gallery, toward Sophie. 2 guards caught her, but she was screaming, "You betrayed me! I made you! I taught you! You owe me everything!" Sophie stood calmly. I owe you nothing, except maybe thanks for showing me exactly what kind of person I never want to become. They dragged Rebecca out, still screaming, still threatening. The courtroom sat in shocked silence. Thomas turned to Sophie. Thank you for being brave enough to stop her. I had to. She tried to turn me into her. I couldn't let that happen. Sophie's adoptive parents hugged her. They'd been terrified when FBI told them their daughter was working undercover, but Sophie had insisted. Someone has to stop her, she'd said, and she had. After the sentencing, Thomas went to see Margaret in her protected facility. She looked better, healthier, color in her cheeks. She'd gained back some of the weight. It's over, Mom. She got life. Multiple life sentences. She'll never hurt anyone again. Margaret exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath for months. I still dream about her sometimes, about being locked in the guest house. But I'm working with a therapist, getting better. When can you come home? They say another month, once they're sure all of Rebecca's accomplices are identified and arrested. FBI had found 11 accomplices total. Diane the nurse, Scott Palmer, Marcus Webb the disbarred lawyer, Ashley Chen who tried to kill Margaret in the hospital, 7 others who'd helped with various aspects of the murders. All arrested, all facing charges. But Rebecca had been right about one thing. She had inspired loyalty in some people. 3 of her followers refused to cooperate, went to trial, got convicted, but never revealed who else might be in the network. There could be more, Agent Torres told Thomas. People we haven't identified. The threats might continue. For how long? Until they realize Rebecca can't pay them anymore. Until they understand she's never getting out. Could be months. Could be years. Thomas couldn't live looking over his shoulder forever. Neither could Jamie. Neither could Margaret. So he made a decision. He sold the house. The house where Rebecca had tortured his mother, where she'd planned his death, where she'd lived her lie. He couldn't keep it, couldn't look at those rooms and not see her. He moved Margaret into a new place, smaller, secure, with cameras and alarms and neighbors who watched out for each other. Jamie transferred to a different university under an assumed name. Not running, just being cautious. And Thomas? He started speaking publicly about elder abuse, went on news programs, wrote articles, worked with legislators to strengthen protections for vulnerable adults. "My mother almost died because I didn't see the warning signs," he told an auditorium full of caregivers. "I trusted the wrong person, gave her access, didn't ask enough questions. Don't make my mistake. If something feels wrong, investigate. If your elderly parent seems scared, find out why. If money is disappearing, demand answers." He helped pass the Elder Protection Act in Washington, required background checks for all caregivers, mandatory reporting for suspected abuse, harsher penalties for financial exploitation. Other states followed. A year after Rebecca's sentencing, Thomas got a letter from Dorothy Chen, the woman in Spokane that Rebecca had been using for practice. "Mr. Brennan, I survived. Barely. But the doctors say I'll make a full recovery. I heard about what you did, how you stopped her, how you're working to protect others. Thank you. Thank you for saving lives by exposing hers." Dorothy wasn't the only one. Thomas heard from dozens of families, people who'd lost loved ones to elder abuse, people who'd escaped similar situations, people who were now more vigilant because of his story. But the best moment came 18 months after Rebecca's trial. Thomas stood in the new house with Margaret and Jamie. They were decorating for Thanksgiving, real decorations, pumpkins and fall leaves, no darkness, no fear. "Dad," Jamie said, "I've been thinking about switching majors to social work. I want to help protect people like Grandma." Margaret smiled. "You'd be good at that. And I met someone at school. Her name is Rachel. She's studying the same thing. I want you both to meet her." Thomas felt his throat tighten. Jamie was dating again, moving forward, not letting Rebecca's shadow destroy his ability to trust. "We'd love to meet her." They cooked dinner together, laughed, told stories. Margaret talked about Thomas's father. Happy memories, not painful ones. And for the first time in 2 years, Thomas felt peace. Rebecca was in prison, maximum security, solitary confinement after she attacked another inmate. She'd be alone for the rest of her life. No followers visiting, no phone calls, no way to hurt anyone. She'd tried to file appeals, all denied. Tried to give interviews. Prison officials refused. She wanted attention. They gave her silence. The ultimate punishment for someone who'd craved power and control. Utter irrelevance. Thomas thought about the 43 victims sometimes. Wondered what their lives would have been like if Rebecca hadn't found them. Wondered about the families still grieving. But he also thought about the lives saved. Dorothy Chen lived. Margaret lived. Jamie lived. Thomas lived. And because of the laws changed, because of the awareness raised, countless others would be protected. One predator stopped. One network dismantled. One system improved. It wasn't enough to bring back the dead, but it was something. "Thomas?" Margaret's voice brought him back to the present. "Are you okay?" He looked at his mother. Healthy. Safe. Free. "Yeah, Mom. I'm okay." "Good, because Rachel just texted. She's bringing sweet potato pie. I told her we already have 3 desserts, but she insisted. More pie is never a problem." Jamie laughed. "You always say that." "Because it's always true." They finished decorating, put up photos, real photos of real memories, not the fake, perfect life Rebecca had tried to create. The doorbell rang. Rachel had arrived. She was nervous meeting Thomas and Margaret, but Jamie held her hand, introduced her properly. She'd brought the pie and flowers for Margaret. "Mrs. Brennan, Jamie talks about you all the time. I'm so glad to finally meet you."
Margaret hugged her. "Call me Margaret, dear, and any friend of Jamie's is family." They sat down to dinner, said grace. Thomas thanked God for second chances, for survival, for family. They ate and talked and laughed, normal things, ordinary things. The kind of things Rebecca had tried to destroy. But she'd failed, and that failure was Thomas's victory. Margaret's victory. Every victim's family who got justice. Every elderly person who'd be protected by the new laws. Rebecca had spent 24 years hunting, building her body count, perfecting her methods. And in the end, one afternoon of a son listening to his mother's cries had brought it all down. To family, Thomas raised his glass. To family, they echoed. And Thomas knew, whatever threats still lurked from Rebecca's remaining followers, whatever challenges lay ahead, they'd face them together, vigilant, protected, unbreakable. Because family wasn't about blood. It was about love, about choosing to protect each other, about refusing to let predators win. Rebecca Foster had taught them that. Not through her lessons in manipulation and murder, but through her failure to destroy what actually mattered. The bonds that form when people genuinely care for each other. The strength that comes from surviving evil. The purpose that emerges from protecting others. Margaret squeezed Thomas's hand. "She lost, didn't she? In the end, Rebecca lost everything." "She did, Mom. She lost everything. And they had won back what mattered most. Each other. Their safety. Their future." The wicked daughter-in-law who thought she could destroy a family learned the hardest lesson of all. Love is stronger than evil. Truth is stronger than lies. And a mother's courage to survive, combined with a son's determination to protect her, is stronger than any predator's plan. Rebecca Foster would die alone in prison, forgotten and irrelevant, while the family she tried to destroy lived on, thrived, helped others survive their own predators. That was justice. That was victory. And that was the only ending that mattered.